everybody for being here. This is our Housing Stability Strategic Advisors meeting. This is the first one since I've been at Post for 2 years that we've done in person. And we did have a number of people still joining remote, but it's really nice to get to see people in the flesh and not online. So hopefully we'll get to continue that here in our next several meetings over the summer while we have nice weather. Wasn't so nice this morning though. So we'll go ahead and get started today with going over our agenda. I do want to remind everybody in the room to speak up because we have one speaker. And for those of you online, if you're having trouble hearing us, if you can just let us know in the chat, we'll speak up. Today, we're going to start with our land acknowledgement, welcome and roll call, and then we'll approve our March 17th meeting minutes. And then we have started doing a new thing this year with the advisors round robin, just getting some feedback and input from everybody about what's going on in the community and needs you're seeing. Then we'll go to our executive director updates, and then we're going to talk about a community survey that we did around our 2024 priorities, and we'll go over those results with you to help inform further discussion in our 2024 budget priorities. So hopefully we should be adjourning by 11:30. And with that, I'll kick it over to Jenny for the land acknowledgement. Sorry, my name.
Oh, that's okay. And thanks, everybody. So the Denver Housing Stability Strategic Advisors honors and acknowledges the land on which we reside is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. We honor elders past, present, and future, and those who have stewarded this land throughout generations. We also recognize that government, academic, and cultural institutions were founded upon and continue to enact exclusions and erasures of Indigenous people. May this acknowledgement demonstrate a commitment to working to dismantle ongoing legacies of oppression and inequalities and recognize the current and future contributions of Indigenous communities in Denver. Thanks. We're going to do the roll call.
I can do the roll call. Quita, Montoya.
She's not on.
Jenny Rogers.
Here.
Myra Gonzalez.
Here online.
Thank you. Thomas Allen.
Here online.
Thank you. Daryl Watson. No. Daryl, okay. Josh Capel let us know he would be absent today. Kristen Toombs.
Here.
It's Kristen. Melanie Lewis Dickerson.
Hi, I'm here.
Randy Kilborn.
Here.
Mark Marshall.
Here.
Jamie Wright.
Here.
Wonderful, thank you. We do have a quorum.
Great, should we open it up for public comment now? If there are any members of the public who'd like to make any public comment, this is your time. If you would like to, I want to remind you to state your first and last name, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you want to take yourself off of mute, you can come on to speak. Can't see, so you all have to. No? Okay. Well, thank you. And if there are folks in the upcoming meetings, we're glad to let you speak at an upcoming meeting. Okay, so next up, I think we need to ask for a motion to approve the March 17th meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve, Randy? Thank you. Second? Anybody will second that motion?
Second. Mark Marshall.
Thanks, Mark. Okay. All in favor, say yay.
Yay. Yeah.
Yay.
All opposed, say nay. Do we have any abstentions? All right, the minutes have been approved. Okay, so this is the section of our meeting that we added in the last month or so. or last quarter. An opportunity for our advisors to share things that you're hearing and seeing in your community, and giving any other feedback that you'd like to host and their staff. So I'm gonna call everyone's names in order. And please chime in and add some of the context that you're hearing from your communities. I don't think Quika is here, right? I'm gonna skip myself and go last. How about Myra? Myra, is there anything that you'd like to bring up to host and the advisors?
Yes, please. So Myra Gonzalez with the Montbello Organizing Committee, located out in far northeast Denver, specifically in the Montbello neighborhood. And one thing that we are seeing is a rise in presence of immigrants and some of the members of the migrant community that arrived in Denver. At the Montbello Organizing Committee, we are located with 11 other nonprofit partners in one building. A lot of our partners provide resources and services, and one of them operates a daily food pantry. And so we're seeing a lot of folks arrive on a daily basis to access services and resources. And we're noticing that a lot of them are living in the nearby hotels, but we're also starting to notice some of the families are living outdoors within the neighborhood. We love that the Colorado Village Collaborative has a Montbello Safe Outdoor site. Unfortunately, they're at capacity and they're not able to take on families. And so we are very limited in our ability to refer them to anybody. We've, received a lot of questions from residents wanting to get into the Montbello Fresh Flow Hub. Unfortunately, our building won't be completed for the next 18 to 24 months. This is going to be a 97 units of affordable housing, and we're seeing a lot of folks questioning and wondering when they can start applying and when they can start getting in. And so we're seeing a lot of folks visibly out in the community, and we're also receiving a lot of inquiries online. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of capacity or resources. And so any support, any information that can be sent to us is greatly appreciated, because we want to make sure that our vulnerable neighbors and those coming in aren't, swept away or put into even more dangerous situations.
Thank you, Myra. Does anyone propose to comment?
Yeah, I'll just say, Myra, thank you so much for sharing the feedback, both about those who are sheltered and that you have had more experience with those who are unsheltered. There, I think that's helpful for me to take back to our team, and we certainly can follow up with you to learn a little bit more. We have outreach teams that serve those who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness that we could make sure to connect with about the rise in observation for what you're seeing in Northeast Denver, and also just make sure that you're aware of some of the resources within the migrant shelter system. I'm not sure if you know if these are individuals who may be unsheltered who have already accessed the migrant shelter system and are no longer being served by that system, or if they maybe never accessed it in the first place. And we can help with referral to resources there in both scenarios. But I do want to acknowledge that we've seen a rise in the number of migrant and asylum seekers, and I can talk a little bit more about that in my updates. And we're also seeing more and more pressures on the homeless shelter system with the number of people seeking to access that system. But all of that is to say, Myra, I'd love to follow up with you and learn a little bit more and make sure you're aware of resources. So I'll follow up offline after this meeting.
Perfect, thank you. And I do want to add that we've hired a community organizer that has started building relationships with individuals. And so we are ready to take on any training, any resources to help support folks with navigation. So thank you.
Absolutely.
So, sorry, Jill Liss, with Post. I've been working in the Emergency Operations Center this past week. And so I do know that there are online resources for migrants, and that's at denvergov.org/OEM. But it would be, there's like a big, long resource document there that has lots of resources that are in English and Spanish, but they also might be helpful to your staff and volunteers just to review those. I don't know if there's anything new in there that you're already not familiar with, but again, that's denvergov.org/OEM.
Great, thank you, Myra. Thomas? Thomas, do you have anything you'd like to share?
I just wanted to add, all of the great things that, the program has been doing, for, this big scope of the problem that, unhoused people, and all the things related to it. To that, our community here has, gone and taken initiative to looked at a nonprofit, particularly focusing on the unhoused people within our community. This nonprofit is called Native American Housing Circle, and we are, getting all the paperwork, all the things ready for that. I believe, all of the paperwork has been established for a nonprofit, looking at staffing, looking at other goals, other ways we can collaborate, and building that foundational mark to be able to help, individuals in our community. So far, some of the initiatives that have been put out have been received well. And again, there still needs to be more, work done and seeing how these things, intersect with different goals, different communities, different organizations. So as far as I can tell, there's a lot of good positive feedback for this. Nothing's perfect. And we're learning as we go. I know there's a lot of collaboration around the SOS housing and everything that came out of that collaboration, and helping people in our community. So looking very, very optimistically towards the future and what this group and other groups have ongoing. Thank you.
I would like to congratulate you on the nonprofit status. I know it's been a long haul and it's really, really exciting to have a nonprofit organization focused on Native American urban housing issues in Colorado and Denver particularly, and wish you well in the pending application for tax credits with Mercy for this site over in Lincoln Park. That's really exciting as well. So thanks, Thomas. Okay, who next? Sabrina is here. Daryl is not. Josh is not.
Kristen.
Kristen. Great. Kristen, you're up next.
Sorry, I couldn't find the mute for a second there. Apologies. I do not have anything to add at this time beyond what has been shared around the increase in migrants. I'm happy to share anything from the state side, but at the community level, I think I don't have anything to add at this point.
Can I ask you a question? Have the Housing Stability Homeless Resolution award nominees or awardees been published yet from the state?
Can you
From the
ask that again? Which awards?
Yep.
13-7.
Yeah, 13, yes. Or 13 or
Okay.
4.
Thank you. Yeah, so we have, yes, I can give a brief. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I can get them soon. Apologies, I've been in transit right now. So we have at the state, we have American Rescue Plan Act Treasury funds that were in House Bill 1304 from last year and 1377 from last year. That gives us $238 million. We did 2 notice of funding availabilities for those funds: Transformational Affordable Housing Grant Program and Transformational Homelessness Response Grant Program. So together you can think of them as transformational NOFAs is what we've been calling them. And so through both of those, the Transformational Affordable Housing one, we have done I don't want to misspeak on the numbers, so let me get those for you. But we have done a number of awards and we still have some coming. We are not accepting more letters of interest for that because we have about 3 times the amount in asks than we have funding available. But are excited about what we've been able to award thus far. And then on the homelessness response, we did our first round of awards and we did 31 awards. And I want to say 33 million for that, but I will confirm that. And then we have our second round, letters of interest for that. The second and final round for that one are due May 31st. And anyone who did not get awarded in this first set of awards will be reviewed together again with anything that comes in through this second round. So again, if you have not applied for the homelessness response one, we are taking letters of interest up to May 31st, and then applications are due June 15th. So happy to share again, once I'm kind of out of transit and in front of my computer, or we can share out to this group more information about who's been awarded thus far from either of those. And if anybody has questions about what applications are in, I'm happy to share that. I might not be able to easily get that for this morning, but happy to share whatever information folks want to know. Did that help answer the question? I mean, as best as I could right now.
Kristen, this is Laura. If you wanna, I know you're in transit on your phone, but if maybe we can offline get a quick summary of the current status to send out as a follow-up to the group. I can.
Happy. Sure, happy to.
Melanie?
Yes. Hey, everybody. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I realized there was no way I was going to make it over after daycare drop off because it was a little bit later this morning. So, things that might be helpful for the group to know about. One, we are really excited. We have a couple of communities in Colorado that are getting very close to reaching functional zero for a population. And for context, functional zero is a measure around ultimately that your system is kind of rare and can make homelessness rare and brief. So you've gotten your numbers kind of very low and you have the capacity to maintain that over time. So we have a couple of teams and communities that are getting close to reaching that milestone. Fremont County for chronic homelessness and Pueblo for veteran homelessness. So hopefully more just kind of exciting news coming from our neighbors and more kind of proof of what, can be possible in our communities coming soon in the next few months. Another big thing we've been working on, we're very invested in the success in Metro Denver and Colorado. So we've been looking at making investments across various communities in Colorado, including the metro area, to add system level staffing capacity and kind of augment other funding that's been coming down. So we've invested over $1 million in the last few months in different parts of the state, including in partnership with MDHI, looking at adding some capacity there to support expanding our data reporting functionality for our by name list data beyond veterans. So we're figuring out what that will all look like, but just excited to continue supporting the build out of the regional infrastructure. And I think those are the only big things to share for now.
Thank you. Randy?
Yeah, I actually just have something to talk about. Still needed. I think ever since I've been on working with this committee and the committee before, I've been saying that there's a real need for increased accessible units. I still hear from Atlantis and Colorado Cross Disability Coalition that they hear from people almost on a daily basis that are looking for an affordable house in their apartment. And the places they go say they don't have anything. I know the federal government, the ADA, and puts a percentage, a number that has to be met, but I really would like to see us do more of a best practice and follow the law, letter of the law to the T, and see if we can incentivize more accessible housing. I've talked over and over again about universal design. So yeah, that's it. I would just like to see some way that we can incentivize making more units that are accessible.
Mark?
Yes, thank you. And I think this might be kind of a tie-in to the last comments about making more units. I think about I look at my comment from the last meeting here, and it seems like I'm probably a one-trick pony here and have a theme that I focus on. That was, the last comment was around the $300 million that's being made available through Prop 123 plus the ARPA money that is in the system right now. I talked about capacity, and one of the things I think that's important here that I hear a lot now and have been hearing for a while is to reach our goal of providing more units, we have to have a production, pretty much a production machine in place here to be able to create the amount of units to meet the needs that we have. And the first part of that, or one of the early parts of that, is getting these developments through permitting. That's a big issue that I hear right now. The time that it takes to get designs, drawings through permitting and through approval process here. I'd like to see what we can do as a group here. How do we leverage our resources and influence here at Host here to help move that process along a little bit more rapidly? I know there is a program in place for, I know we don't like to use the word expediting, but expediting and moving forward more quickly those developments that are for affordable housing. But I think we need to look at how can we take a look at the system that is in place to look at system improvements. So thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Good point.
That would be a way to incentivize building more accessible housing is give them a quicker turnaround.
Just write it down, just to go back to peer cities that we may be able to do another layer of look back at as far as some ways that they're doing things that you're describing as far as accessibility, binary, assessment, search. And then I also wrote down for Mark, it's been a little while since we maybe have had the CPD team share back on the Affordable Housing Review Team. AHART is the acronym that we utilize. And that's maybe something that we could at least get an update from that group in their first months of utilizing that program, what some of the outcomes have been in moving affordable projects through the review, whether it's presentation or even a written update to this group to just give some information on the forward progress there. So just a couple of things of note that we may need to follow up on to respond to both areas.
Yeah, I like the suggestions, and maybe there'd be an opportunity for them to come and give advice. Jamie?
Good morning, everybody. A couple of things. We're in the middle right now of doing a continuum of care. So we're the 7-county Metro Denver region youth needs assessment to kind of inform some of our youth response, as well as help kind of define some of the things we apply for under the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Project, which is a special award from HUD for annual recurring funding to address youth homelessness. And that grant application is due at the end of June. So we're kind of in the middle of applying on behalf of the region to get specific funding, a specific funding stream for youth homelessness. I think the other thing that's exciting, Melanie talked a little bit about this, as did Kristen, just some recent investments, both from the Transformational Homelessness Grant and Community Solutions, on the homeless management information systems, data visualization, as well as qualitative data collection and ensuring we're capturing the voices of lived experience and people that are actually navigating our system in order to help inform systems level changes. And then the other big thing that we're working on right now is just kind of gathering some initial information on what has been spent around the region related to homelessness and housing with the federal COVID relief funding, kind of trying to determine what, when that money is fully expended in 2026, what that kind of cliff might look like, and then what people are planning to stand up so we can start getting to maybe what the regional needs are going to be from a funding stream perspective after 2026.
Jamie, do you feel like you have what you need from the Denver team on that, or is there anything we owe you to make sure that request is fulfilled?
I think I did get some information from Jennifer Bice. Jennifer, thank you very much. I may need some clarification just to make sure I'm capturing the correct data. So I'll reach back out with specific questions, but we're going to be looking a little bit more closely at it as a group on Monday. Thank you for that.
Happy to follow up, Jamie, just let me know, or if it's easier just to talk through it for minutes. Have a quick chat.
Thanks, Jennifer. I appreciate you.
I'll give just a really quick few updates. Mark brought up, but for the 1-2-3 funding, for those who haven't been following the legislative session that, thank God, finally ended about a week ago. There were some changes to that legislation. I don't think for local governments there were enough changes to that. But if you're interested, I can get anybody the detail on what that final bill looked like. Along those same lines, there were quite a few tenant protection bills that passed. We have a blog going out today from Enterprise. I'm happy to provide to the host team to distribute to everybody that gives a quick summary with links to more details on all of the bills that passed and didn't pass, including land use. If anybody's interested in kind of a quick summary of the legislative session, I'm glad to provide that. Couple offerings we are in the midst of a training series, free training series for anyone who's interested. Mark and Rocky Mountain Communities are participating in a nonprofit cohort. This is a training focused on small NOAA preservation, small property preservation. It'll go through October. There are 11 training series. We've done 3, and our 4th one is coming up. They're all recorded, so if anyone is interested, I can also get information about that training and how to sign up to the host staff. It's been a great series, and then we are going to be having a training that DHA is putting on for housing navigators on getting people access to vouchers. That's coming up in the next few weeks if anyone wants to. I think that's it for me. I know we're a little behind, but I really think that section is so big.
We'll make it. I was just making a note to myself. We'll make that longer.
Yeah.
To you. Great. Well, there's a lot going on in the host space, so I'll try to keep it into 5 minutes. But Jill, I want to pause and acknowledge that this is your first meeting. I know you got a chance to say hello earlier, but before I talk about anything else in the host team, do you want to just let the advisors know about your role and what ways you're supporting the agency?
Sure, so Jill Liss, I'm new with the host team. I've been here just a little bit over a month now. I've actually been with the city for 5 years. I most recently was the Communications and Community Engagement Officer for the Office of Special Events. But was really excited to work on something a little bit more rich and wanted to also focus on the community engagement work. So I'm glad to be one of 2 new community engagement officers with hosts, and still kind of sorting out how we'll all work together. But I will be working with this group and also with folks like registered neighborhood organizations, business improvement districts, maybe city council, so more like the house community, to help engage and give them updates and information about our work, and also provide a feedback loop so that we can get their feedback and bring that back to hosts. So we'll be in contact with you all. Feel free to reach out to me, and super excited to be here.
So nice to meet you. Just acknowledging Emily Cervantes is another team member who's not here today, but who is doing more of that public engagement as a compliment to, oh, Emily's online. Emily, do you want to come on and say hello?
Hello, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Hi, I'm Emily Cervantes. I just joined along with Jill. I will be her, I guess, partner in this endeavor as we reach out to community to really let them know, what hosts can do for them. I'll be working with the mostly unhoused and housing unstable community. I come in from the nonprofit world where I was a research director as well as a community advocate. So I'm really looking forward to building those relationships with our advocates and with our community members.
And I just want to say, I'm not going anywhere, but I'm thrilled to have all this new support on our team. And so continue to feel free to reach out to me. But Jill will be your kind of point person regularly for HSSA, and you'll be seeing Emily along as well. Just some of the feedback we heard even today about needs in the community are really helpful to her as well. So thrilled to have them on board.
Yeah, do we want to do a quick round robin of this team? Edie, do you want to get us started just with a quick name and role?
Sure, I'm behind the camera here doing all the technology stuff. I'm Catherine Walmsley, Marketing and Communications Officer for Host.
I'm Sabrina Ali. I'm the Director of Communications and Community Engagement.
I'm Derek Woodbury. I'm on the communications team as well. You probably see a lot of emails from me on media list distribution. One of my primary tasks on the team is media relations.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Bice. I'm currently our Acting Deputy Director of Operations.
I'm Holly Kyle. I'm a housing policy officer with Host, and I hold up our policy work and strategic initiative work.
So, yeah, thank you for pausing to make sure we do that. So just a few updates. We've already started to talk about a couple of items, including migrant and asylum, an influx of migrant and asylum seekers. So just at a very high level, and I can certainly dig in with those who are interested, either in questions here or offline with more follow-up. But the city hit a pretty big milestone in the last week, which is that we served our 10,000th individual in the migrant and asylum seeker shelter network. Many individuals are moving through Denver to their final destination that may be beyond Denver. So that includes more than 5,000 ticket purchases to serve that 10,000 person group. But we really saw an influx in the number of people who are coming to Denver, actually in anticipation of the lift of Title 42. Last week, we thought we would see a peak after the lifting of Title 42, but hit our high water mark with 400 individuals last Tuesday. It's the highest day as far as numbers of people in a single day. Since then, it's been more like 100 to 150 each day, and we're starting to see a number of those individuals who are moving beyond Denver and a bus or train ticket. So it's not quite that the number of people departing equals the number of people coming in each day, but it's more balanced than it was last week as far as coming and going. So the city last week activated our emergency operations center again. We had done so in December, but just with the influx of new arrivals, we opened again last week. So myself, Angie Nelson, and Jared Powell on our team are rotating in. Jill and Derek have also been supporting in various ways the Emergency Operations Center. I want to acknowledge that that's been a significant inflow, and it has also put pressure on our system of shelter for people experiencing homelessness. We are seeing more people who are exiting migrant shelter after their 30-day length of stay, and they access the homeless shelter system. So the biggest pressure points for us in the homeless shelter system, which has already been very tight, was the influx of new arrivals last week with the weather, combined with the weather. That was a big pressure point last week. So it's difficult to see our system fill up, but I will acknowledge that with the decrease in the number of new arrivals over the last week or so, we've also seen a commensurate decrease some of the pressure on our system. It's very tight still, but we saw the biggest utilization last week in the intersection of those two services. Let me pause there, and that's a very high level overview of migrant sheltering. Are there any questions on that?
Are you finding these migrants are people who did not choose to come here, but were sent here by Republican governors?
We did see our arrival yesterday of a bus to Civic Center that had 41 people who were transported from Texas via a chartered bus. We haven't seen that in the way that other communities have. So that instance yesterday was a newer phenomenon for us. We see a lot of media on that today and some of the comments around concerns about the reasons for why that happened. But most of what we have seen is individuals who we see the largest number of people coming from El Paso, yes, to destinations like Denver. It's actually cheaper to get to Denver than it is to get to like a Houston within Texas. So we are seeing a lot of people, but it's more so on Greyhound or other buses coming as opposed to like a chartered bus for that. But we did see that.
Anybody online have any questions or comments about that? No. Okay. Going through the others in case questions. I just want to acknowledge that we had the closure of one of our last COVID era shelters that were funded in partnership with FEMA. The Aloft Hotel closed in April. We had with the Salvation Army as our operating partner for that, as well as a really robust partnership with the state. And I want to shout out Kristen and her team and connection across the state partners to help support residents at that site with vouchers. Through those partnerships, we were able to successfully connect everybody who was at the Aloft facility to a stable exit, including a lot of vouchers. And so that site did close down in April and is no longer being used as a shelter. But I just want to acknowledge it was that realm of partnerships that made that closure so successful and that landing place with people so successful. So thank you, Kristen and team, to Salvation Army for all of that. 137? Yes, the 137 originally and all. We are providing some bridge housing support for those who may need to connect to that final landing place with their housing voucher and to get that housing unit set up. But they are trying to. Well, I think it was close to 70 vouchers. As well as HICPA. And if we need to do any follow-up question on that, we can always work with Kristen, but Kristen helped to facilitate. So I also just do want to acknowledge something you may have seen in the news is that we have another site that is anticipated to close. This was another site that was opened during the pandemic, was supported in some ways with FEMA support. But we have been utilizing a shelter it's called the Roadway Inn at about 47th Federal as a partnership with the Denver Housing Authority. They purchased the site with programmatic funds from the D3 bond and DHA delivers for Denver D3. That is a partnership with the city. We've been leasing that property purchased with those funds back to utilize as a shelter for women, for trans guests, and for non-binary individuals. And the lease ends at the end of August. The anticipated plan is that DHA is selling that property to help support the purpose of D3 for supportive housing. So the lease is ending at the end of August. And so we're working with Salvation Army and the Gathering Place is the other partner at that site to connect. The current guest is 79 individuals to alternative options beyond that shelter as part of the anticipated closure. I will acknowledge that we're working to expand we've learned a lot from COVID about non-congregate shelter, about its success, and are working to expand it in this year's budget. And that includes support for this population as well as others who may not be as well served by congregate shelter options, like couples in addition to non-binary and trans individuals. So this is part of our plan to expand this non-congregate shelter, but we do recognize that the closure of this particular facility is a difficult transition, and we're working, especially after all of the things we've learned from Aloft, to try and make that as smooth as possible. So if you have questions.
With the trans and non-binary community there, have you tried partnering up with the stuff to think about it?
We're certainly working with our partners out at that site on all possible options, and I'll make sure that they are thinking about that as a solution.
Did you say, is Denver Housing Authority selling the site?
They are anticipating this.
to a developer.
There's
Or-
still working through it.
But not necessarily.
They're still working through that plan. I think it is not currently being planned for as a D3 property in the same way that was. So it's anticipated to be sold to recycle the funds into it. So we're trying to determine what the. Yeah. Any other questions on that one? And then I guess just finally, we'll celebrate a couple. I feel like we've been on a really robust circuit of celebrations lately. Derek's been working really hard on groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings, and other events to celebrate the opening of a really robust pipeline of affordable housing. So just in the last couple of weeks, 2 are listed here, I think, including ones this week. We actually have 4. I will highlight. We had the Northfield Flats. That opened just in the last couple of weeks, which is in the Central Park neighborhood with Mile High development and Bridgeshore development. It is a total of, make sure I get the right number of units. See, it's not listed. Do you remember, Derek?
We'll talk about it, but actually that was a groundbreaking.
Groundbreaking, excuse me. Thank you. We'll get the actual number, but it's a new affordable development out at Northfield Flats in Central Park. A lot of deeply affordable 30% AMI units, which is a unique component to that development. So excited to be celebrating that one. We also celebrated the opening of Charity's House on Belton Street in the last couple of weeks, which provides supportive housing, 36 new supportive housing units to help those who were previously involved in the justice system connect to stable housing. Just this week, Jenny and I also celebrated the opening of another supportive housing project at 7900 East Colfax, which is in partnership with Brothers Redevelopment and the Brain Injury Alliance of Colorado, 72 new supportive housing units at a site that the city actually acquired, selected a partner, Brothers developed. And then just yesterday, we had another affordable development that is a preservation of former dormitories at the former Johnson Wales campus. So it's going to be 154 affordable homes for families. So just a really like a cadence of big, important developments opening or breaking ground in our community, which just highlights a robust pipeline made possible by all of the resources that are in the city's budget for affordable housing. So just celebrating all.
Where is it?
It is Welton and 30th. So just at the end of Welton. It was a really special celebration. Very community driven project.
Overcame a lot of obstacles along the way.
Yes.
Really led to the rate reduction. In Denver, right?
Yeah. It was
The challenges that they were facing.
36 supportive housing units. Yep. So yeah, our pipeline is really robust right now. We have nearly 2,000 units that have received funding and are under construction across 34 different sites. So there's almost 600 more that are anticipated to break ground and are in the planning stage here in the coming months. So we're now, as you see in the slide, over 26,000 affordable homes in our entire portfolio. So that's an important milestone for us to have crossed, and we continue to forge past it. So it takes a lot of effort to get those projects from concept to funding to developed to celebrated. And so just kudos to all the partners that made those possible, which includes other funders than just the city. We've been with the state a lot and with organizations like Enterprise a lot. And just kudos to the host team that have worked tirelessly over the last several years and months and days, and will do so in the coming days and weeks, months and years ahead. So kudos and hats off.
Before we move on to the next part of our agenda, I did want to let everybody know that we received an email from Daryl this morning, and he wanted to apologize to all that didn't make it. He intended to be here in person, but as many of you know, he is running for city council right now in a runoff election, and that's taking over most of his time. So he did want to let you know he's sorry not to make it and not to deliver this news personally. said he will send an email to you all later today, but he is going to be resigning his position with HSSA. We kind of talked a few times about that with him since he resigned as chair and knew he was going to be running for city council. So we'll be very sad to see Daryl go, but hope, you know, we will continue to work with him in other capacities in the future. And I am checking with the mayor's office to find out if they will be trying to make that appointment for that position before the end of the administration, or if they're going to deliver that on.
That is
Nine.
we will miss Daryl, and as you work through that process, will you let the advisors know just the type of appointment and if we can suggest?
Yes, absolutely.
Before we move on, can I ask a question to updates? Speaking of the end of the administration, do we foresee any changes in post for this committee or anything based on when a new administration comes in?
It's a good question, Randy. I think there are some things that we know and some things that we don't know in the process. So we're in the middle of the runoff at this point. June 6th is the next election, and we, as far as we don't know what the outcome of that will be. We do know that inauguration is July 17th. So that is the changeover in administration between Mayor Hancock and whomever's administration takes over at that point. So we'll have more information to talk about as we know a little bit more in that realm. I think what I would say is we have a strategic plan that has been adopted by City Council and guides our work. They changed that plan. We need to go back through approval processes to develop a new plan. We also have a lot of our resources that are dedicated funds for affordable housing between the homelessness resolution fund that got support by voters and the affordable housing fund. Those are dedicated resources to housing and homelessness. So we certainly will find out a little bit more about the plans, and we have been created in an executive order and are articulated as an agency in a lot of our legislative documents. So it was hard to share as far as change.
Do I recall correctly that the strategic advisors were dictated within the affordable housing fund? So city council would have to change that.
Yes, that's a
question on the strategic advisor. Yeah.
Yep. That's right. And including the membership and the requirements of the committee. So those things all live beyond the current administration, because they're in an ordinance, as are our funds, as are our strategic. So all of that infrastructure is here, and certainly the team members that you have with us now will be with you on the other side too. So
you have a chance to talk.
we're making sure that folks are informed of our work and answering questions.
Great. Well, with that, we will go ahead and get to our community survey results, and Polly Kyle is going to go ahead and go through these. We're really excited that we had some pretty good engagement on the results with them.
Hi everyone, Polly Kyle again. I'm gonna go through our community survey that we put out for our priorities in 2024. We got 244 responses to that survey, which is pretty exciting. And the breakdown of the top three response folks, we had 40% were private or nonprofit partners, 30% were community members, and then we also had 11% were city employees. We really did have a balance across city council districts across the city. So on this slide, we went through all of our goals that we have in the 5-year strategic plan, and we asked what folks recommended posts take extra efforts to move forward in 2024. And we asked them to select their top 3 priorities. Those top 3 priorities were address unsheltered homelessness with 62%, expand access to affordable housing opportunities at 61%, And then expand pathways to successful rehousing for people experiencing homelessness at 43%. I will say these results, those top 3 were across all respondents, as well as the top 3 respondents of the private or nonprofit partner community members and city employees. So we saw those 3 priorities from everyone, as well as our top 3 respondents.
I just know, I know it's something that I keep bringing up, but is that pathway into homelessness, and I see that the fourth one is reduce evictions, right? Which I think is still an important area.
Great. And then we went through and asked folks to talk, we pulled some strategies from those goals. So each of our goals break down into strategies to support those goals. And we pulled some of our some of those strategies, and then we had folks rank the urgency of those strategies. And this graph here on this slide talks about the percent of very urgent response, somewhat urgent, neutral, non-urgent, non-urgent at all. And for this way, for housing opportunity strategies, survey respondents rank strategic acquisition of facilities for conversion and redevelopment into shelter and or affordable housing as the highest priority on urgency, with 75% of the respondents saying it was very urgent. But you can see here, especially when you combine the very urgent and somewhat urgent, that all of these strategies are considered urgent by our survey responders. For our housing stability strategies, survey respondents ranked funding sources for housing stability programs as the highest priority based on urgency. 72% of the respondents said it was very urgent, but again, you can see the evictions to your point, Jenny, and then also provide legal counseling there with 55 and 54% as very urgent as well. And then for homelessness resolution strategies, of the 5 priorities proposed, most felt all of these were very urgent. The top 4 were ranked between 68 to 73% of respondents said they were very urgent. The lowest for very urgent was at 49%. But again, you combine that somewhat urgent, they're almost at a tie in terms of homelessness resolution strategies.
Yes.
Guests are folks that are utilizing our shelter services.
Oh, okay. Visitors, people that are out of town.
Yeah, good clarification. They got it.
Yeah. And then our operation strategies, I still seen as very urgent and somewhat urgent, but they rank a little lower than some of our other strategies in our housing opportunity, stability, and homelessness resolution space. But people still see the work of our operations pillar as being important to support all of the other work that our other pillars are doing. And then lastly, we had 2 open-ended questions, some overall themes that we got from those open-ended questions. We want to increase options for stabilizing unsheltered individuals, expanded safe outdoor spaces, tiny homes, non-congregate shelter. We need more housing from 0 to 30% of AMI, including more supportive housing. We need more mental and behavioral health and substance misuse treatment options in coordination with housing, increased access to vouchers and more housing options for individuals who hold vouchers. We heard a lot prioritizing eviction defense funding to help combat historically high eviction rates. We are seeing historically high eviction rates in this post-pandemic era, even compared to pre-pandemic levels. Listening and coordinating with individuals with current lived experience in homelessness, and then additional resources for families experiencing homelessness. So these were kind of some of the overall themes that we got from from those open-ended questions at the end of our survey.
Great. And I think I have this last slide. First, I want to say thank you to Polly for such a wonderful overview of our community survey. This last slide is a bit of a reflection for what we heard from HSSA members at our meeting a couple of months ago when we started a conversation around 2024 plan priorities. And so just wanted to highlight a few themes from that conversation, and then we'll open it up for input and further conversation. So we heard from you all the impacts of a new administration and position, that administration's position around unsheltered homelessness. I know Laura's touched on a little bit of what we know and don't know yet around the new administration. Also heard a need to continue that focus on housing stability programs, particularly rent and utility assistance. And I think that theme also comes through in the strategies that our community members are really identifying as very urgent. Also a theme around Push Shell Zero for homelessness for veterans. And really having that measurable progress and those benchmarks for us to track progress against for Denver as part of our region. Also continuing to dig into our work around affordable housing and distinguishing between subsidized and affordable housing. And really continuing that focus, including those interim housing options that continue to build that production cycle, Mark, that you were talking about in your update today. We also heard an ask for more detail on the cost breakdown that we shared from our 5-year strategic plan. And so while we don't have that for you today, the host team is working on updating some of those numbers. So we have, total development cost per unit, our typical host subsidy, our typical cost per unit for different types of shelter. So we're working through some updates to those with more current data, given that those are a couple of years old, and we'll circle back with HSSA and provide those updates. But for our last bit of time today, we would really love to continue the conversation around 2024 priorities and get your feedback in light of these community survey results or other feedback that you all have been thinking on in terms of how hosts can continue to focus on executing our strategic plan and really what are those places of high urgency. And so what that we could do is maybe just go back through those slides that we shared with the community input and just pause on those and kind of open up for conversation. So I don't know who's running the screen share at the moment.
Are they in the appendix?
No, can you go back to slide 13?
Yeah. We even go back one more, Katie, to slide 12, just on goals. I would love to hear feedback. I know Jenny, you had shared that even though it didn't score quite as highly, 30% focusing on fiction, and that's also another priority. More feedback on where you all think we should be particularly focusing.
Yeah, I can jump in, but I'm curious to know if other advisors would like to add comment as we go through these slides first. Randy, I can see you, so I'll call on you first.
I know I already brought this up and was gonna look into it, but I would like to see some extra efforts to increasing accessibility.
Yeah, I like the idea that Laura brought up of looking at best practices and ways to incent that from other cities and places so that we could.
I've always wondered, I've always heard people talk about that, say that, since I've been, like I said, on this committee and the committee before. And I always wonder, why don't we be the first city to do it if no other cities are doing it?
Well, that's a good
Let them
point.
come and look at what we're doing. So, just.
So maybe that survey needs to also include ideas from staff and a discussion with the advisors on what those strategies could be. Yeah, why not be a leader?
I've always wondered about
I think if you can other places, it makes it easier to take action, but you're right, if the action isn't there, then Denver certainly isn't here in many areas.
Yeah.
Anybody else overall?
Can we just ask a general thumbs up, thumbs down? Do people feel like this is kind of how you would rank order these as well? Yeah, it's a little small, I apologize.
Thumbs up from Mark.
Great, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, I would say thumbs up from Melanie as well. I mean, these feel like pretty high order areas, that need to be prioritized.
Great. I give a thumbs up with the addition of preventing evictions, because I feel like you need to have housing stability and preventing evictions if you have any chance of solving homelessness. So I think we're struggling nationally, not just in Denver, but statewide and nationally, to figure out with the end of ELAP, with evictions rising, as Polly said, or Jennifer said, over 2019 levels. And it's certainly something that we've seen in community that, folks are getting evicted, and it's cheaper to pause an eviction and help someone before they become homeless, and much more, homelessness is much more detrimental than housing instability. Housing instability is detrimental. So I'd like to see.
I know this didn't rank very high on the list, actually probably way toward the bottom, is advancing regional approaches. I really like that idea, because I think it's going to be really hard for us to solve anything without working with Lakewood and Aurora and Inglewood and all the other cities in the Denver region.
Can I just bring up another, I'm just going to pound on this. One more point there is that, and I'd be curious to hear from Mark, we are hearing nationally that our affordable housing providers are starting to struggle with their operations because of tenant instability and their inability to pay rent. And then it's actually causing some ramifications. Basically, we heard that in Andy and for meetings. So just to mention that housing instability can really impact our affordable housing systems.
We have a hand up. Mayra, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just have a clarifying question. For the expand access to affordable housing opportunities, did we define what that expansion means? And I apologize if I missed that.
It's a great question, Myra. So we did not in the survey provide additional detail on those definitions, but do reference back to our 5-year strategic plan. And so some of the big goals or kind of the metrics in that particular goal of the plan, I'm just pulling it up so I don't forget anything, are around increasing our income restricted stock from 7% of our overall stock to 8% of our overall stock, and creating and preserving 7,000 units, including 900 supportive housing units, and reducing the rate of cost burden among low and moderate income households from 59 to 50%. So those are some of the kind of ways we've tried to define what progress on that goal looks like, in case that's a helpful starting point. But if there's other things that you're thinking about in terms of how we define or clarify that goal, would love your feedback.
No, just I think from our experience, folks might define access as being able to get into affordable housing and what those processes look like. I know that right now, a lot of different projects might have their own application or waiting list. I know that a couple months ago, we heard of there's a dashboard that's being created to prioritize. I think there's going to be a prioritization tool. And so I was wondering if that was being incorporated into this definition of access as well.
That is a great point. I think the prioritization policy work tends to live more in our housing stability portion of the plan, as well as our operational work. But we do have Polly here, who is the steward and brain behind that prioritization policy, along with the community and a lot of other host folks and stakeholders. So Polly, do you want to speak a little bit to that policy and some of the data system work that we're doing to help make that access easier?
Yeah, so we passed the prioritization, the affordable housing prioritization policy. I need to get back in the habit of saying those words together because it is a tongue twister. In September of last year, it will go into effect on July 1st, 2024. And in the meantime, we have been working to develop a data system as well as a public facing website that will help folks more easily find affordable housing. The prioritization policy piece of that is that 30% of new and newly preserved affordable housing units will be set aside for prioritized individuals who are at risk of displacement or who have been displaced. And then that public facing website will allow even non-prioritized folks who are looking for affordable housing, hopefully have an easier time finding available affordable housing listings in Denver. We did an RFP at the end of last year to solicit for a developer for that system, and ultimately our Salesforce, which is a system that we use internally to host, that we are expanding for bigger and better things and better ways to track all of the things, is going to be building out that system and building the prioritization policy data system into Salesforce as well. We will be having a meeting in June, on June 8th, which we will send notice out here shortly for, where we should have kind of a preliminary look at kind of what we're thinking about and how we're envisioning this data system and website looking, and would love for attendance at that to get stakeholder feedback and community feedback on how that is functioning and working. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about it moving forward. I'm also going to be working on the implementation, the rules and regulations details that will really get into the weeds with how that policy will be implemented with the scoring system and those pieces as well, here starting in the second half of 2023. So we'll start that work and the community engagement around that work here very shortly as well.
You send the advisors numbers?
Yes, definitely.
So, yeah, I think pause on each of the slides, just briefly get some feedback on how these strategies resonate with you. I think one context piece for the strategies in here, these are not all of the strategies that the host team will be working on in 2024, but these were some that were potentially kind of more in our phase 2 part of the plan, and where we felt like kind of just gauging community feedback would be particularly helpful. So also if there's things that are really important to you that aren't on here, that feedback is
I asked on the, I like all of these. I wish we had enough money to do absolutely everything once and realize you don't. The preservation, the fourth one down, this one talks about existing affordable properties with expiring covenants, and then does this also include unrestricted affordable NOAA?
So
and it looks good.
let me look at the whole.
Because I do think preservation on top of production is also a very good strategy. I know it's in the plan.
Yes, just be some.
Yeah, it says unrestricted, so I think that's all.
At the full language, it's develop a program that incentivizes property owners with expiring covenants to maintain long affordability, and leveraging opportunities for preservation partners to proactively engage with landlords and owners who wish to sell. So I think that's a space for the NOAA folks to
We have a hand up online. Melanie?
Yes, were y'all finished? I just want to make sure y'all were finished with the point that was made right before I jump in.
I think you're good.
Okay. The thought I was having and kind of reflecting on how to think about prioritizing this is, it could be beneficial to do some type of like impact effort analysis on some of these to see, like, to the point about, we wish we had the resources to just kind of do everything that we know needs to be done, but is there a way to help distinguish, what could be like quick wins or what is going to take, more effort or more resources, but could be very high impact. I think some way to kind of plot these different strategies against each other could also help, like broadly speaking, with some prioritization.
That's helpful. I think, yeah, we can, as we get a little further into thinking with our teams, I think we can take that feedback back and kind of, think through quick wins versus where we may have some bigger lifts and how we consider that as part of further plan development. That's really cool.
Yeah, that would be great. Because I'm just sitting here, especially in these areas where I have, less expertise compared to some, like around the preservation ordinance. And I'm like, I don't know how big of a thing, that would be. Is that something kind of easier to tackle, or is that going to be a big intensive process? So some way to kind of distinguish those, I think could be really useful.
I think it's a good point, because it's not only what's the effort that it takes to do one of these things, but also what's the funding requirement. Like a preservation ordinance update would take time and effort, but isn't $1 million investment, where some of the other ones.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really.
Yep. And what's the potential scale of the impact, to kind of prioritize where the energy is focused.
This is kind of more broad discussion, but that top one about vacant parcels made me think. There was a discussion on Nextdoor recently about the huge property down there with the old Gates Rubber. But is that going to be available? Is it available? What is going on with that? Do we know?
Yeah, I can address the fact that there is, we could follow up with a little bit more on where that particular redevelopment area is and development processes and site plans. I'm sure our planning department can speak more to that, but for big redevelopment areas like that, as projects are contemplating their future use, there now is a more robust engagement process. It's called the large development review process, whereby community input is provided on the future vision for a site. And usually the outcome is some sort of development agreement that codifies a commitment to cities support for the project, but also the developer's commitment to the city, like affordable housing. That one is a few years old, so the large development review process was more refined later, but there is a whole development agreement for the Broadway Station partners, is the development for Gates Rubber Factory, and that dictates what their affordable housing commitment is and other things. So CPD would probably have a little bit more information on like how far they are in effectuating some of those plans, but there is a agreement that would be
something is in the plans, because people are like, are they selling it? What? Or do we need developers to come in there? What's happening?
Oftentimes with a big redevelopment area like that, you have a entity that would be the sort of master plan developer across multiple parcels, and then so they negotiate their affordable plan and their transportation and other infrastructure plan, and then sell off individual parcels for development to a vertical developer. So that would be the general. Anybody else?
I don't see any hands, but if anybody would like to come up, you are more than welcome. Or we can move to the next
Well, I was gonna mention to the coming up with a strategy, maybe it was what Randy said, like maybe it's number 2, a list of affordable or vacant properties or potential properties for use for affordable housing. I remember Randy, you and I were both on the old committee when that was done by the city a while ago. And I remember Councilwoman Keach and some others wondering if there was another way to run that analysis to look at, you know, the summary of that analysis was that there weren't many parcels of Denver and that there weren't many opportunities. But she brought up a point that if you looked at adjacent properties and properties that abutted some of those city-owned parcels, that there may be opportunities that you couldn't see in that data analysis. So I don't know if the city's done anything else like that since. It's probably 5 years ago.
Our real estate team has continued to pull together, and some of, while the city may have limited opportunities, it may be partners that are, like expand the scope to not only city brand, but RTD or CDOT or other agencies.
Yeah, these are big empty
footprints.
buildings next door.
So they're,
Yeah.
yeah, so our real estate team
Is always doing that. That's
Yeah.
great.
Move to the next one.
Okay. I think next meeting, right?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you guys want to run through each of the next slides really quick? We do only have 10 minutes left. Yeah. Anyone have any feedback on housing stability strategies? Okay. How about homelessness resolution? Pretty.
Can I ask this question about D3? Is there any way to do that again? I realize the bonds are still being.
Yeah, so the infrastructure of D3 is that we utilized the property tax component of our affordable housing fund, which is the most reliable source to pay back a bond issuance. So generally property tax is the source of repayment when the city or a partner like DHA does bonds. So we committed to 20 years of payment of our property tax to DHA. So even though the funds will be invested over more like a 10-year period, we'll, for that last 10 years, still be paying off DHA to repay the bond. So to do something like that again, we would need to have another different source before the 20-year period to be the mechanism for support for the issuance. So it's certainly possible that that source could be identified. Property tax tends to be the most reliable thing. We also have issued general obligation bonds, which is the city more directly. We did for the first time, and was being led for approval to use that for a housing insurance purpose. So there certainly could be the opportunity to identify another source and partner with someone like a DHA to do another similar D3 outside of the city. Or there's always the tool of general obligation bonds that could be explored for more of a direct solution.
Yeah, that's the answer I thought, but.
It's a great question. Actually, we got past that at City Council's Safety Committee on Wednesday when we presented on D3. So lots of people wondering that. I'm sorry, operations strategies, anything? Yeah, go ahead.
What the maximum, a voucher. Maximum rent that a voucher would cover for some. They used to be like $1,200.
I would follow up, and unless you have any answer on that. I know it would depend on the unit type and AMI of the individual, but I can get you that.
Anything on operations strategies that anyone wants to raise? Anything on open-ended questions or themes, other things you guys want to bring up as we're considering our priorities for next year? Final comments?
Oh, yeah, this is Mark here. This is going back this is going back a little bit in the conversation between bad reception and driving in the rain here. It's not bad rain. Just wanted to get back to that comment here around how it looks operationally on the ground for residents and stability and evictions here. Way back, when the moratorium was going on, even after the moratorium was lifted, we had said that, we're in the business of keeping people housed versus evicting people, but we still were noticing on our receivables here, we had a lot of non-payment of rent. So to the extent that we could, we exhausted the ERAP funds, and we work with other partners looking at additional funding here for to assist residents, any type of rent assistance that we can find. But we discovered two categories of people here, and I think we're now getting out of the effects of COVID right now from an operator standpoint. The first group of people we discovered were the folks who just were not going to pay. And we had to work out, all right, what do we do and at some point you just have to move folks along. If there is that mentality, we're just not going to pay. And then the second group were the people who want to pay, but were not able. And that's the group we're most interested in and became most interested in working with. One thing that's gonna be affecting people here is when the new HUD rent, I think it just got approved or just got released the income limits here. And as everybody knows, last year we saw an 11% increase in rents here. That had a huge impact kind of across the market here, I think, on stability, because it drops people down in their AMI levels or their ability to pay. And talked to a colleague just yesterday who was telling me that one of their communities, their residents were so upset about the large increase, they created a tenants union. So I think that might be something that we're seeing more of going forward here, tenants banding together to protest higher rent increases here. And I think from the operational standpoint, we're trying to keep up with the HUD limits here. We don't, as an organization, push it to the maximum limits, but I think there are organizations that do. So just wanted to bring those points up. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. That's great. Those are good points.
One more thing I'll just share as far as 2024, since we're having this conversation, a few of us at City Council today, just presenting our 2023 plan and acknowledging that we are engaging with you all in our plan for 2024. And I'll just share back a couple of the comments that came to us for our ongoing dialogue is just as we think about the priorities for homelessness resolution in particular, there's a tension to acknowledge between expanding more shelter and shelter alternatives for people who are currently experiencing homelessness and the support for the exits to stable housing, to exit from homelessness. And so with one-time funds this year and with support from our homelessness resolution fund to operate planned expansions to our shelter pipeline with the purchase of hotel or other properties, it's a bigger footprint of shelter investments this year than maybe in previous years. And so I just want to acknowledge that there were some comments and feedback provided to us as part of that dialogue around, as we move forward, trying to balance our investment in more housing that actually helps people exit homelessness. And it's not to say that shelter isn't an important component part to it, but as our funds grow, as we have opportunities to seek more investment, it's imperative for us to be thoughtful about how we're balancing that tension, especially continue to grow the pipeline of housing that helps people. So it's not necessarily a request for a specific thing, it's more of a component to our conversation that came up on Monday that I want to share back with you all as we talk more about 2024, that's interesting, that's helpful.
All right, well, we are right at 11:30 and got through a lot of content today. So thank you all for all of the great input. And our next meeting is July 21st, which feels like forever from now, but it will come faster than we know, I'm sure, yeah. That will be also hybrid, and so we'll do the same thing we did today in person with the online Zoom option. And we'll be talking more about our 2024 action plan priorities. So excited to be moving all this work forward.
Get more in person.
Yeah, I was saying, Nikki and I encourage more of you to come in person if you can. It's nice.
We even have really great
Yeah,
snacks,
snacks,
plenty of coffee.
friendly people to hang out with. Thank you all.
Truly, thank you all. I know it has been a busy season for all of our work inside the city and across our partners. So just appreciate your partnership. Thank you for the input. And just continue to appreciate the table that this group has set as far as opportunities. Thankful for everything that you're doing, and thank you for the
Just you get a list of everybody that's on committee, who they're with. The sooner you want to apply, the more appreciate.
Yep, I will absolutely we can send that out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.